Hello everybody, Simone Jansen here. Hope you're having a fabulous day. It's been a really interesting week as all these weeks are being. I always notice it's kind of a trip. I talk to so many people every week. I mean, between enrollment calls and onboarding calls and client work, it's people of all different levels and all different walks of business, and there's generally a theme. And this week the theme has been failure, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about it because it's such an interesting subject because we all deal with it every single day as entrepreneurs. And this year has been just a slew of having to deal with things falling apart, not working, changing, up-leveling, pivoting, whatever. Nothing has really gone as most of us thought it would go. So we've had to deal with a lot of changes and adapting, and of course a lot of failures because nothing is as we thought it would be. And I think for a lot of us entrepreneurs, it's not that different from normal day-to-day stuff, because if you're an entrepreneur, your every single day is about, you're pushing the envelope, you're trying something new, you're trying to get to the next level. And anytime you're doing something new, expect failure, because that's just what it's going to be. You can't get to a new level of anything if there's no failure, right? Hi, Candy. So good to see you. So we have to try some new things, and that means we're going to have to get used to it. It may not work the first time. It probably is not going to work the fifth time. It's probably not going to work the 10th time. So you just have to look at, if you're doing it right, you're probably going to fail. So it's all about, when you're failing, what are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus on what didn't work? Or are you going to focus on, what did I learn from that little tiny bit that did work? And sometimes it's going to be over and over and over and over until you get there. Now, the only thing that's important in that is having the grit to stick with it, because most people give up way too early. And whether that's in business or in life, we have to be willing to just keep going with what we're doing and expecting the best. So what are we focused on is question one. And one thing that I've learned from years of being an entrepreneur is our nature is to want to look at the problem. So if we keep looking at the problem, we get stuck in the problem. And that is really difficult. Now, we do need to look at the problem because that's what we're trying to solve. So it's more of a percentage game. So, because as long as you're looking at the problem, it also means you're stuck in suffering about the problem, because it's hard to be with the problem. So if we're focused mainly on the problem, that means there's a lot of suffering and a lot of discontent, and it doesn't feel good, right? So when you can shift the percentage, it all changes. So what I've learned is, the way it should be, when you look at really, really successful people, entrepreneurs, CEOs, whatever, they are that good because they know how to shift quickly. So what the percentage should look like is, take 5% of the time and look at the problem, and then take 95% of your time and effort and really focus on the solution. So touch on the problem, so you know what it is, you know what you're going to do about it, and then just work on executing, getting it done. So that shifts the problem much quicker than just focusing on the problem. So one good mindset to practice with that is that there's really no such thing as failure. There is only feedback. So it's really easy. It's a human condition to want to focus on the problem and live in it. But that's not where the learning lives, right? The feedback comes from just looking at what went wrong and then implementing what went right and reinforcing what went right. So we want to be in that mindset of implementing what went right. And face it, you're not really in the business of whatever you're in the business in. What we're all in the business of is solving problems. So there's no such thing as solving all the problems and being just done with it. This is just what every day looks like. So the only thing that's going to change the way we experience the day is how we feel about the problems. Now this might all sound kind of crazy, but think about this. If you could look at a problem and feel rather dispassionate about it, and your brain just started immediately working on, okay, what am I going to do about this problem so that I can have a better outcome? How would your day go? How would your outcomes go? What would you be pushing instead of when you're focused on the problem? So it's a very instrumental mindset shift that's very slight, but it makes a huge difference. So I'd love for everybody who's watching this to try this, because it's a practice. Just like a problem never goes away, this practice never goes away either. You got to start doing it, and you got to keep going with it, because that's really what changes the way your business goes. So it's not easy when you think about, the great inventors like Edison. He blew up, I don't know, gazillions of light bulbs before it finally worked. Or Henry Ford, I think he blew up, 1,000 engines. I think it was 60, but he blew up a lot of them before they finally worked. So it's not in the getting it done. It's in the noticing what works, notice what doesn't work, and reinforce what does work. So it's an everyday practice to be okay with that things aren't going right. And the other point about it is, the more goes right, the more you're going to fail, because the more goes right, the more you're going to increase the level of business that you're operating in. And the higher your level of business, the higher your level of challenges are going to be. So that's just something that we all have to get used to. And that's really it. Because in the beginning, every failure seems like such a drama, like such a big deal. But the more you get used to things not going right and being okay with it, the more it's really not such a big deal. Just like we've all kind of gotten sort of numb to all the challenges in this year, because we have to still be operating within what we got. So it's the same in your business. The higher your level of business, the higher your level of challenges, and the more you get used to just addressing the challenges in a dispassionate way and dealing with it, the better you can actually operate, and the faster you can solve the problems, and the more successful you're going to be in the long run. So the more goes right, the more is going to fail. And then the only failure really is, when you think about it, is giving up. And that's really important when we look at what's going on all over the world right now. So we can't give up, because giving up would make the problem go away for sure. But we can't give up. We got to keep believing what we believe in. We have to drive our mission. We have to change lives, because if we don't, who will, right? We have a huge responsibility in this world, which is serving our market, serving our customers. They rely on us, so you can't give up, no matter how difficult it seems. And the more difficult it gets is the more people you involve in this. So some of my clients, they're pushing 7 figures, some are already going for 7 and 8 figures, and they're all experiencing the same thing. The more people you involve, the more difficult it gets. And humans are just completely unpredictable, and they are very human. So you have to give them time to get used to change. And when you're comfortable in your situation or your level of operation, and somebody comes to you and says, hey, you have to do this differently now, or I expect more from you, well, the human reaction is going to be resistance, being uncomfortable, drama, all sorts of emotional responses, and those are hard to deal with. So it's really important to recognize the human element when you're expecting and demanding change, requesting change from somebody. And becoming the leader you need to be to help people really up level to that next level that you're requesting from them. So it's a little bit of, as a leader, you got to go first and make those changes in yourself. Because if you're not okay with failure, how will they be? If you're having huge emotional responses to failure, what do you think is going to happen in your team? If there's a lot of drama going on in your mind and in your life, well, how you vibrate in private is how you vibrate in public. So this is a mirror effect, right? So we got to get these things right so that we can lead a team of people. So the second you add more people, it's going to be a lot harder. And the biggest job for us really is to emulate what Jim Collins calls a level 5 leader. So that is comprised of humility and fierceness. So the humility really comes in knowing that this is not about us anymore. So getting our ego out of the way, and then shifting our perspective to that our success comes through our team succeeding. So it's not about us anymore. We're here to support, we're here to coach, we're here to help them up level and shift their vision, and then they get to succeed at a new level, and that's really our new level of success. So that's the humility that comes in. But then the next part, and that's the almost the hardest one, is fierceness. Because with the humility, what has to come along for it to work is that we are willing to hold people accountable. And what I mean by that is we have to be willing to wake them up. When things aren't going well, we can't just tolerate that. So there's no tolerating of anything that doesn't align with the standards of business that we have set. So we have to hold people accountable. We have to have the challenging conversations that are necessary to have people step up. And we also have to be willing to make the changes that we need to make so that we can help them make the changes that they need to make. So I hope that's resonating. Keep working on those challenges. Keep failing, because there's going to be so much good in every failure you have, and keep getting out of the suffering and focusing on the wins. Have a fantastic week, you guys, and I'll see you next time.